Peru, Brazil, and Africa. New markets evolution.
Thank you, everybody. I'm the CEO of Global Lab. We are a new testing lab. We are working around the world. And today, I want to talk with them and show to the people something different from the normal panel. So I want to discuss not in the good opportunity of the new market, but I want to understand, I want to have some point of view regarding the risk, maybe, or the situation, some doubt that you have on the new market, on going and deciding in new market. So I'd like to stay with you, not making a normal panel, but just creating a sharing and sharing together and creating a good conversation regarding, first of all, the compliance risk, and second, also the stability of the compliance for the new market. Because nowadays, the situation is that new markets are regulated, but in some cases are not so ready, are not ready to be on the market. So that's what I want to understand from your point of view.
Yeah, thank you. So, like every new market, I think it's very exciting and brings a lot of opportunities. But we also need to think about the challenges. I wouldn't call it the risks, but mainly concerns that we have with new markets, uncertainties, mainly with markets that are new territories and unsimilar to what we are already used to. So, an example of Brazil, Peru, and territories such as Africa. Obviously, there's a lot going on in these markets, very exciting opportunity. We're also evaluating from both B2C and B2B. But the uncertainty about the regulations, we also see it in Brazil now. There is a lot of challenges, both from a financial perspective, in terms of the very high fees and taxation, as well as the challenges, the internal challenges between the states or the provinces against the federal regulator and government. And we're still, even though there is a regulated regime and licenses should be issued in the beginning of January, we still see that there are many disputes. And we also saw it with sports betting versus casino. Up until recently, we, as an operator, a B2C operator and a B2B provider, were not certain which casino products are allowed, if any. And I think that the main concern when researching these markets is the uncertainty around the regulations and technical requirements.
Yeah, actually, further to what you're saying about uncertainty, like us as a game provider, if we look at games that do well in South Africa, and you say like, well, is the same product going to work in other territories? And pretty much, territories that do not require a strict licensing regime allow you to get a feel for that market. They allow you to create a product, to understand what works in these territories. And what regulation does is, first off, it's going to put a cost to that. You can't go in and try something out. It's always going to be a very expensive proposition to put product there. So even in terms of just amount of product that would be available in regulated markets, that's already something that companies consider strongly. You know, how much product can we put and how much do we risk when entering a new market which is now regulated?
Okay. In our point of view of a gaming supplier, when you're facing a new market like this, the change and amendments that often occurred is a topic key to discuss, because it's in high risk for even for all companies that want to facing these markets.
One of the things that I want to underline is that the same problem that operator provide, as in many new markets, is also for the testing lab. Because sometimes we have in the situation where we didn't receive any confirmation from the regulatory, from the technical part. And because we are the front end of the regulators, we should have this. So in some cases, the situation is, even for us, not easy to understand. What we usually use is we adopt a strategy to try to help in the client to make the protective approach in terms of the requirement, just to not request too much point to the provider operator that are not specified in the regulation. Imagine that we have the same problem in every new country because they start, but sometimes the main problem is that they are not totally aligned with the department, with the operation from the regulator. So that's reflect on the situation of the provider and operator. So one of the other thing is how you manage the sudden changing the request of the regulator when you are already present, you already invest in modifying your platform, your system. So you consider to be ready to modify even your platform when they request.
So that's true. You touched into a very painful point, so to say, the instability or the constant changes in regulation, not necessarily new regulations such as Brazil, Peru, and countries in Africa, but also well-established regulated markets in Europe that we see now constantly changing, even if it's not from a technical point of view, but from a financial point of view. It makes a lot of difference if you applied for a license under specific terms, and then after, for example, 5-6 years of operation, all of a sudden the terms, financially, technically, all of a sudden changed. One of the things, in my opinion, and there are various regulators that do it, is dialogue. Dialogue between the regulators and the B2C operators and the B2B providers, which are also regulated in some of the markets and are licensed. And I think that an open, transparent dialogue, in many countries, they consider it as a consultation, whereby the regulator doesn't necessarily change the law, inform the licensees, whether B2C or B2T, about the changes and allowing them time to change it. He actually proactively interact with them to see if their changes are acceptable or not even acceptable, if they can offer something different. I think there are various regulators such as the UKGC, such as the MGA, that follow this approach, and it is highly appreciated from a licensee perspective, because then you know that first of all your voice is heard from a regulation point of view, and second of all you know that you have time to prepare. You're not just getting a new law which will be effective in, let's say, 6 months, which you need to comply with, but you are part of the process. And I think a transparent and free interaction, dialogue between the regulators and the license holders is something that should follow, in my opinion, all of the regulated markets.
There is also another, let me make you a critical question, because I suffered this situation in the past, and I want to show to the people what is your approach when you have some operator that are requesting to do some specific certification or some specific modification in your system. How you manage the possibility to understand if it's true what they are asking, comparing with the regulation? Because one of the problems is that usually the operator, they can also tell you, okay, you need to do this, this, and this, otherwise you are not integrated. That's one another problem. So how you manage the request of the client, obviously, comparing with the regulator?
So I can take this one. Let's take UK. Are bonus buys allowed? Well, if you look at the regulation, technically it is allowed, but most of our clients wouldn't want to risk it because some of those bonus features within a bonus buy might actually be not allowed, so they don't have the time to do all that compliance checks themselves on every game. So they just say, you know, cancel them all. And we rely on our labs and work very closely to understand what is the best product we can put in this market. And then suddenly we're faced with a situation where we have to cut out a decent part of the product, making it less playable and less fun. But ultimately, we also want to be the company that listens very closely to our operators so that they don't need to worry about us. Say, oh, don't worry, it's air dice. You know, the games will be fine. We're not going to be in breach because we can't make our customers feel like they need to always look at our product, that it's safe and it's regulated and it is certified and it will work. So it's a bit of a dance, you know? A lot of backwards and forwards on all sides.
Yeah.
I agree with him. It's very important that authority should be opened to the discussion directly to the operator and even with you as compliance. So this is my point of view.
The analysis of the risk is one of the base in every company that you need to consider. So, because if you take some roads that are not totally in line with the market, with the regulatory, the problem will be a big problem. So, one of the things is that every provider, every operator should try to understand themselves. Sometimes what we see is that providers are asking us as a testing lab because they consider that we can answer to everything. First thing is that as a testing lab, we must respect the impartiality, independency of the testing lab. So we can't make any consultancy in terms of this. The point is that every company should try to find, and that's another question, how you manage the compliance before arriving in a market to be sure that the compliance is totally in line with the requirements of the regulator and with the requirements that maybe you can receive by the client.
So yeah, that's also a challenge. In order to overcome this challenge in markets that have specific cultures, let's say, such as Brazil and Peru, which for an operator based in the EU, these are unique regimes. One of the measures that we take as an operator and as a provider is, first of all, try and communicate with the regulator part of the licensing process. If there is no licensing process, for example, for a B2B, and as a B2B would like to understand what to do in order to certify your platform so you can sell it to B2C license holders, then you guys come into the picture, hopefully with a lot of experience, or at least an experience in this specific market, that can assist us understand one of the main challenges is the technicalities. So you have a platform, and it fits for 20 markets in Europe or in Canada and others, but all of a sudden there is a new complicated and new unique regime when you're not sure that you're able to comply from a technical platform perspective. And one of the key points is to engage with the test lab to understand what are these unique requirements and what is the gap that you currently have from your platform that is already licensed in around 15 to 20 other markets, and what do you need to do in order to make it a compliant platform in Brazil, Peru, and other markets as well. So I think at the end of the day, you need to, before entering a market, you need to do your homework. Discuss with whoever you can. Obviously, local partners, not only test labs and regulators, but also local partners, whether online, offline, land-based casino, or recruit compliance teams on the ground. This is something that can definitely assist in understanding the markets and ensure smooth entrance and penetration to the market.
Totally agree, I think.
Okay.
Very much.
It's something that is not possible to.
No, it's a challenge. Sometimes it is mission impossible. It looks like mission impossible because sometimes what they require is a little bit difficult to provide. In our experience, some authority require us some financial statement that follow such rules, even if our location not follow these rules. They request us, we know that you cannot provide such document, but we want. This is the reply that we had.
So we saw the situation of the Peru market that is going on, quite good. And we see the situation in general in Africa that is a little bit confused, and Brazilian market. So in terms of Brazilian market, what we saw and what we tell to the client, provider, operator, whatever, is that are you sure that you start to certify now or waiting the specific moment where everything is totally organized, or how you manage this situation? Because it's a big doubt at the moment.
I think, to be honest, the pressure is coming from the operators. They want to be live when the market opens. They need to have games which are certified in order to do that. So the pressure is driven largely by that. Because I would rather be safe and understand exactly what the regulations require before I start the process, but I don't have a choice. And it's very important for us to be there with our operators and give them the backing of our product. I think it's also one of those things which is an evolving situation, and an evolving situation is, in a way, it can be good because you can take more market share as companies grow, but it can also be very painful. Like if we look at the tax regime in Brazil, I won't be surprised if tomorrow then the conversation will be that they want to lower the RTP of the product. And that puts us in a situation where we look at markets like Germany, where as a company we already felt we didn't want to be a part of that market just because our games are not designed for such a low RTP kind of product. And those are the kind of journeys which I think are a bit unpredictable. But because we decided to go in early on, you don't really have a choice. So it's all risk, no matter what you do.
Yes, at the end, we have the common risk in every regulation, new regulation. In Europe, we are almost regulated. So at the end, it's a problem of the new markets, like LATAM, so new market like Chile, Mexico, they will be regulated soon. So we are following all together the situation. And it's not easy to understand which is the right direction, because nobody knows this at the moment. Even because, for my opinion, there is too many politics aspects in every regulation that create some problems in terms of the operation of the regulation. That's my personal point of view. But usually what we see is this, that if the regulation is managed by politicians, not from just the expert part, could be a problem in the future for the operator in the market. So that's for me one of the main points that we need to obviously take a risk. We are in this market. We need to try to find the right solution in the short time, because otherwise we are out of the market, no? And the same is also for us as a testing lab.
Yeah, I agree that I think a political situation is always affecting, because at the end of the day, the industry is affecting an entire region. and it can be a very beneficial source. But I think that the bottom line should be stability for potential and future licensees and companies that would like to enter these markets. The more stability and clarity you have with markets that are culturally, as I already mentioned, culturally different, would be much easier to attract entities and potential partners from outside these regions, because obviously at the end of the day, I think that also both Brazil, Peru, as well as regions in Africa, would at the end of the day would like to attract foreign operations and not base their operations only locally. And I think that the more certainty and stability, as I said, that will be in these regions, the more it will be beneficial for both sides.
Yep.
I think what I would add to that though is there's always the danger of going a bit too much. You know, like over-regulation, all it really does is create a healthy black market. If players know that they're going to get a better experience not by being in a regulated framework, then that is something that is actively happening in regulated territories already. And if you create a situation where it's hard to uphold that legislation, then it puts everyone who is doing things according to legislation at a very big disadvantage. In some of these markets, maybe not so much Brazil, but maybe more Africa markets, I think it's going to be a very big concern as to the lack of enforcement versus creating a very much larger black market than a protected one.
This is one of the problems in all markets, that the rules and laws are made by politicians and not by iGaming people that already know the market.
Okay, thank you very much.